This is Alexandra George with Inside Ambition, and today I'm talking to Professor Ron Bishop. He's a professor in the communication department, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about how virtual learning is going for him. Hi, Professor Bishop, how are you?
Hey, Alex, how are you? It's good to talk to you.
It's good to talk to you too. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your job and what you teach?
Okay, well, I'll give you the brief version. I've been at Drexel for 25 years. I'm a professor in the Department of Communication, as you hinted at. I teach a wide variety of courses, things like media law, sports journalism, and investigative reporting, which we know well. And I've been fortunate enough to publish a pretty decent range of journal articles on a variety of topics, mostly textual analysis of media content. And I'm working on my sixth book on how sports writers, we talked about this, sports writers have covered mental illness in athletes over the decades. So that's the short version.
It all sounds very, very cool. Could you take a second to describe your teaching style a little bit and your philosophy?
It's a little scattershot, but I'm sort of a fan of a writer that some of your listeners or readers may know, Paulo Freire. He was a scholar from maybe 10 or 15 years ago, which kind of based he's more famous than that, but he centers education around compassion and trying to understand, or at least appreciate, and maybe not totally understand, where students are coming from, what they bring to the classroom, and using that, and not in a kind of a mercenary way, but just try to appreciate that and use that to help keep the learning going. I've been fortunate enough over the years to have some really cool role models, not to go too far back in the memory banks, but my sixth grade teacher, Tom Troiano, who's living over in South Jersey now in retirement. I just always remember that he was just really kind to people, and I don't see why education at any level, from kindergarten to where you are, needs to be so, hyper vigilant and super focused and outcome driven. It's just, a bunch of people hanging out and sharing ideas. And I always, Sheila, my wife, actually kind of coined the phrase, it's more like being a really well-educated tour guide, where you kind of bring people along for the ride and, and just appreciate them for who they are. I mean, it's been just a great source of joy over the years to get to know a lot of people like you. And that's kind of what's always driven what I've done in the classroom.
Yeah, and that's part of why I've always loved taking your classes so much, is because you're not outcome driven. And I feel like I learned so much from being in your class. And now that we've moved to virtual learning, there's like the outcomes are being shifted. We have pass fail. Now there's talk. I saw this morning some students were calling on the provost to allow students to opt out of finals with the state of the world right now. How would you say you've adjusted your syllabi and such for COVID and just the way the world is right now?
Well, it was kind of hard at first because I had never, and I think I told you this at one point in our previous discussions, that I had never taught online before at all. I'm sort of a rarity, I guess, in today's day and age, and it's not a knock necessarily. I have serious reservations about how effective it is, and I think it lends itself to a lot of, some of the stories that you and your wonderful colleagues have told me over the months and years about, basically just counting times people talk in class and clickers and all this other stuff. That's just anathema to me. So it took a little bit of a jump start with Sheila's support, just kind of getting things together. And I just hoped that I could put together materials that were helpful and that would, in addition to the meetings that, we have in our class and also, both classes, since you've been kind enough to take both of us. That they're helpful, and that at the same time kind of stays true to not being if you pardon the expression, being in your back pockets every 5 seconds. I think it's not conducive to learning. So it's taken a while. I know I have a long way to go in terms of maybe not mastering the technology, but at least getting a little better at it. I don't know if I want to get too good at it because it's not really my cup of tea, I guess. And I can't wait to get back into the classroom. But I think and this is just me as a personality quirk. I do worry all the time I'm not doing enough, and then I go between that and thinking, okay, things are going all right, so that's just my neuroses. But just trying to make it as informative and flexible, and not add. And we've talked about this, just not adding to all of the stuff that's going on in your lives, not just at Drexel, but just worrying about the world. I mean, especially the last week since Mr. Floyd was killed, and that's got enough going on without me coming in. But at the same time, I do want to try to inspire a little bit of curiosity, at least, and interest in the material. So that's kind of the needle I sort of thread in a sometimes awkward way.
Yeah, there's a balance for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's and it's I try to be as play off of you guys in class, and just see where you want to go. And like I said, Sheila's metaphor is pretty apt. It's just a tour guide, kind of thing.
And then I know, like, as students, our perspective is like, oh, virtual learning is so hard. I wish we were back on campus and all the stuff that's affecting us. But also, professors are now working from home, and that's a challenge in and of itself. So could you talk a little bit about working from home and what that's like for you and how it's been affecting?
Well, I mean, for the most part, it's been really, I always, it's kind of ironic, actually, because when I'm up at campus, and this is just, have a family, you miss your family and you want to be with your family, and I love being here with them. But I think there's something, and I said this to a colleague a few years ago, the classroom has always been kind of, and it sounds totally weird, but sort of semi-sacred space in a way to me. I mean, I think that, I like to be on campus, and I like to, there's talk, and I don't know how closely you guys have been following the budget travails that Drexel has been going through, but we were having a meeting the other day, and they were talking about, budget savings by maybe giving up people's offices, and I just, you do need a separate space to do things, to do certain things. And that doesn't mean the other spaces, here with the dog and the boy and everything, it's not, that's all wonderful, but it just is, it's the place where learning happens, which sounds like a commercial, but, and I hope that makes sense. But I think that's kind of been the biggest adjustment. It's not that I don't mind, the hour and whatever commute from down there, but, by the same token, that time when you're there, it's just very energizing, and, a little frantic sometimes, and everybody has their bumps and whatever, but I think that's the biggest adjustment. And that's, the Zoom calls are great. I love seeing everybody, but, just being in the same room. And that's why, I hope that Drexel has its act together in terms of, I'm not entirely thrilled so far with some of the safety measures or the lack of safety measures that they've talked about, in terms of bringing us back into the classroom. The rooms as well as I do. Some of them are very cramped. The ones we've been in academic with those crazy chairs are really cramped. And so can we get social distancing in there? And it's a little, I'm probably rambling, and I hope I'm not boring your audience, but for us, it's really important because, as I'm sure you know, and told everybody a million times, Neil has cystic fibrosis, so I worry about, as much as I want to come back and see all of you, that I pick up something, nobody's fault, and then I bring it home, and he gets sick, and then so that's a very long-winded answer. I think it has been quite an adjustment, because there's a rhythm and a really nice feel to just the anticipation of hanging out in the hallway and talking to people and getting in there and doing whatever we do and moving on with our days. It's just a very special time.
Yeah, And who knows what normal will look like come September, but I really hope that we can be in that space again as safe as possible.
Yeah, and better. I mean, I think that's one of the things, I think we talked a little bit about this in one of the classes. I want to be better than normal. I mean, everybody's throwing around the term the new normal, and that's a convenient little phrase to throw around to try to encapsulate or explain what we're going through. But I just want us to be a little more appreciative of, it's really expensive to go to college, but you get to hang out with good people, and just go beyond normal, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
We're learn to myself and everybody included. I don't say this as a you must do this, but just to learn to appreciate those experiences in a deeper way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that's a really good perspective heading into whatever kind of world we see.
Yeah, it's going to be it'll be interesting. Like I said, I'm waiting to hear more from President Fry about the plans he has. There haven't been any really concrete things. I know there's a task force that unfortunately the faculty have not been a lot. That's terrible grammar, but have not been extensively involved in. There are only 3 people on a 40-person task force to figure out where we're going to go in the fall. So that concerns me a little bit. And I know that they're probably good people, but their goal is they're trying to stem financial trouble. And so I hope that isn't occupying most of their brain cells when they make these decisions about when to come back, or if we come back in the fall.
Yeah.
So it'll be an interesting month or so. They've finished their work, I think, and so he's supposed to make some kind of announcement in the next week or two, and we'll just kind of know. But I think, getting back to the original point, I mean, it's kind of a little void that I would like to sort of fill.
Yeah.
When we get back in September, hopefully.
Yeah,
but
hopefully. Hopefully and safely.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I know a lot of students are really going to appreciate hearing from a professor what the experience is like. So thank you.
Yeah, I hope it was helpful. And I'm happy to. Like I said at the outset, I'm really glad you're doing this, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure.